All right, so are you ready to just completely dive into this book? I mean, this book's going to leave you thinking, hold on, did that really happen? We're talking about David Goggins' autobiography, Can't Hurt Me.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting how he mixes his personal story, all the things that happened to him, and then almost throws these challenges right at you as the reader.
Yeah, yeah, he wants you to kind of look inward a little bit.
Absolutely, he does.
Yeah.
And what makes Goggins' story so captivating, I think, is that this isn't just your average self-help guru.
Right.
This is a guy who went through, pretty extreme poverty, abuse, racism. I mean, you name it, and despite all that, still managed to become, a Navy SEAL
Yeah.
and an ultra endurance athlete.
Yeah, I mean, he really is an incredible specimen of a human, and what's so interesting to me is his childhood,
Yeah.
and we're gonna jump right into that because I mean it's pretty crazy. He grew up in rural Indiana, and his dad owned a roller skating rink called Skateland. So on the surface, it sounds kind of fun, right?
Right. Yeah.
But it was actually the setting for some pretty dark stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And Goggins really describes his father as uh, like a textbook manipulator.
Yeah.
Charming to the customers at the rink, but at home, a completely different person.
Oh, absolutely.
He was abusive to Goggins and his brother. He forced them to work these really long hours at the rink.
Right.
Didn't pay them, and he was also abusive towards their mother.
Yeah.
And she was kind of trapped in this situation, right? She was financially dependent on him.
Yeah, and what I think a lot of times when people hear like abuse and they think, well, maybe it was just some tough love parenting.
Right.
But it's not like that at all with God in this case. He talks about actually witnessing his father beating his mother.
Ooh, wow.
And at 8 years old, I mean, can you imagine? At 8 years old, he saw his father holding a gun to his own head.
Gosh, that's heavy. That's a lot for a child to witness.
Yeah, yeah, to go through that, it's no wonder that he developed all these coping mechanisms, and becoming emotionally detached.
Right, right, because he had to find a way to just survive in that environment.
Yeah,
That was his way of, kind of protecting himself from all that trauma.
exactly, exactly. So when did he finally get out of there?
Well, it seems that the real breaking point came when, Goggins saw his mother being abused yet again,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when his mother and brother just decided to escape.
He talks about struggling in school, even though he was finding some success in athletics, but clearly he was still carrying a lot of baggage from his childhood.
Absolutely, and that leads up to this really pivotal moment for Goggins. He calls it his mirror intervention,
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
and it's this moment where he shaves his head,
Right.
he looks at himself in the mirror, and just vows to completely change his life.
Right.
And it's almost like this symbolic, act of shedding that old self. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it really does sound like he was finally confronting his past head on
Absolutely,
instead of running from it.
Yeah.
And this is actually when he decides to join the Air Force.
Right.
And initially he wants to be a pararescue man,
Uh-huh.
but then he faces his first major setback.
What's first major setback? Yeah, what happened there?
Well, I mean, was it the physical demand of training? I mean, I know that can be extremely demanding.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, Goggins actually reveals that he had some concerns about sickle cell trait.
Right.
And ultimately, he ends up quitting pararescue training, and this really shakes him, to his core. And, even though he ends up serving in the Tactical Air Control Party,
Right.
which is a really challenging role, he still felt like a failure because he didn't achieve his original dream.
Right, right. So even after taking this huge step to transform his life, he's still battling these setbacks and self-doubt, which is, I think that's got to be a tough pill to swallow for anyone.
It is. It is. And Goggins' story doesn't sugarcoat that at all.
No, no,
And
yeah,
and after leaving the Air Force, he kind of falls back into these old patterns.
right,
He gains weight, he's working dead-end jobs, he's feeling totally lost.
right, right. So what happened? What brought him out of that spiral?
So one night, Goggins is watching a documentary about Navy SEAL training, BUDS training, which stands for Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training.
Right.
And something about this documentary just it reignites that fire in him.
Right.
He becomes fixated on the idea of becoming a SEAL.
Right.
It was like he needed that extreme challenge to uh, kind of pull himself out of this rut that he was in.
Right, but I mean, he was still carrying a lot of extra weight
Yep.
from his, post-Air Force slump. How could he even think about becoming a SEAL at that point?
Yeah, you're right. He was significantly overweight, and honestly, most recruiters, they just dismissed him outright.
Yeah.
But then he meets this recruiter named Stephen Shaljo,
Okay.
and Shaljo actually sees something in Goggins. He sees Goggins' potential,
Mm-hmm.
and he gives him a chance, even though, Goggins is way above the weight limit.
So this recruiter is essentially saying, you're nowhere near where you need to be, but I believe in you, so go lose like over 100 pounds in 3 months.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, that just sounds impossible.
Does sound impossible.
So how'd he pull it off?
Well, Goggins goes on this, I'm going to call it a radical weight loss journey. And it was fueled partly by this near-death experience he had with pesticide poisoning.
Oh, wow. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, so it's almost like, that brush with death gave him this newfound appreciation for his body and what it could actually achieve.
Right. Right. Okay. So he drops the weight, he gets into BUDS training, and I mean, this is where we really start to see his insane mental toughness come through.
This is where it really shines through, right?
Yeah.
BDS it's notoriously brutal, right? You have this constant physical and mental stress, sleep deprivation. I mean, they're pushing you through intense pain, and it's all designed to weed out anyone who's not 100% committed.
Yeah.
You can't fake it there.
Right. So how did he even survive that?
So Goggins developed all these incredible mental techniques.
Okay.
One of them is what he calls the cookie jar.
The cookie jar.
The cookie jar, yeah.
Yeah.
And basically what he would do is he would tap into memories of past suffering. So things he'd endured as a child.
Right.
The pain of his weight loss journey. And he would use those memories to push through difficult moments during training.
So he's basically weaponizing his pain.
He's almost, he's weaponizing his pain. It's like he's saying, okay, this sucks, but I've been through worse.
Right.
And it worked. He
Yeah.
was actually doing really well on his first attempt at BES, Class 230.
Okay.
But then he gets hit with double pneumonia,
Oh no.
and he has to drop out.
Another setback.
Yeah, it's another setback.
I'm sensing a theme here, but did he give up at that point?
Well, if you know anything about Goggins, you know that that quit isn't really in his vocabulary.
Right.
So he comes back even stronger for Class 231.
Ugh.
And this time, he's part of a really, really strong boat crew, but they end up facing this tragedy during Hell Week,
Yeah.
which is the most grueling part of BUDS.
Right.
When one of their fellow candidates, a guy named Mr. Scop, dies.
Wow. That must have been, just devastating for the entire crew.
It was, and it really just kind of highlights the very real risks, that are involved in this kind of training.
Right.
But even in the face of death, Goggins keeps pushing forward.
Right.
He's not just physically strong, he's mentally unbreakable. And
Right.
and at one point, he suffers multiple stress fractures in his shins.
What?
But he literally duct tapes his legs and keeps going.
Okay, this guy's willpower is just something else.
It is.
So did he make it through?
He did. Goggins graduates and becomes a SEAL, but as you might guess, his story doesn't end there.
That's where we'll pick up next time, right?
That's right. That's right.
Oh man, I'm already on the edge of my seat.
I know. There's a lot more to come.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Okay, so we left off last time with Goggins actually achieving his lifelong dream of becoming a Navy SEAL. But knowing this guy, I just have a feeling he didn't just settle into a routine after that.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Goggins, he always needs to have some kind of challenge, something to really push himself to those limits.
Right.
And that's actually when he discovers ultra running.
Really?
Yeah, and you won't believe this. He didn't exactly, ease into it.
Okay, hold on, wait, seriously. How do you even go from being a SEAL to running these incredibly long distances?
Well, Goggins' first ultramarathon was the San Diego one-day 100-miler.
Wow.
And get this, he ran it with no prior training.
Hold on, no training for a 100-mile race. I mean, most people, they train for months, I mean, even years
Right.
to prepare for something like that.
Yeah, but that's Goggins, you know.
Right.
He's all about, proving that he can overcome any obstacle, even if it seems impossible.
Right, yeah.
And he finished the race, which in itself is pretty remarkable.
Yeah,
Um, but it wasn't enough, for him. He needed more.
of course.
So he sets his sights on an even more grueling challenge. The Badwater 135.
Oh, wow. I've heard of that. Isn't that the one that goes through Death Valley in the middle of summer?
That's the one. It's 135 mile
Oh my gosh.
through one of the hottest places on Earth. I mean, temperatures can reach over 120 degrees out there.
Right.
It's considered one of the toughest ultramarathons in the world.
It sounds like absolute torture. I mean, why would anyone willingly put themselves through that?
Well, for Goggins, it was about testing those limits of human endurance,
Right.
both physical and mental. He wanted to see how much pain he could endure,
Right.
how much his body could actually take. And it wasn't just about, proving something to himself.
Yeah.
He also saw it as a way to inspire others to push their own boundaries.
Okay, so did they just let him sign up for Badwater? I mean, he hadn't really done any serious ultra running at that point.
Well, not exactly. The race director, Chris Kosman, he was understandably hesitant,
Right.
I mean, he was receiving hundreds of applications from, really experienced ultra runners.
Yeah.
And here comes Goggins, who's basically just run 100-mile race on a whim.
Right. Yeah, I can definitely see why he might have some doubts.
Right. So Goggins, he decides that he's going to prove his commitment.
Okay.
And he runs the Hurt 100, which is another really difficult 100-mile trail race. It's in Hawaii.
Right.
And he did it with just 2 months of preparation.
Wow.
And the Hurt 100 involves over 24,000 feet of elevation gain. I mean, that's like climbing Mount Everest from sea level.
Right.
But Goggins finished it, showing Kosman that he was absolutely serious.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, so he gets into Badwater. How do you even prepare for something that extreme?
Well, Goggins, he knew that he had to, really condition his body and mind for those brutal conditions he was going to face.
Right.
So he created this insane training regimen
Okay.
that involved running in the hottest part of the day,
Oh gosh.
doing these long ruck marches, carrying, really heavy weight, and just pushing himself to the point of exhaustion over and over and over again.
So he was intentionally trying to like simulate the suffering that he knew he was going to experience during the race.
Yeah, exactly. He understood that to succeed at Badwater, it wasn't just about being physically strong.
Right.
He had to prepare his mind
Right.
for those inevitable moments of doubt and pain that were going to come up.
Right. So when it came to the actual race, I mean, did those moments of doubt hit him?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He faced extreme heat,
Right.
dehydration,
Right.
excruciating pain. I mean, he describes his feet swelling so much that he thought they were going to burst.
Oh my gosh, that's a terrifying thought. I can barely walk to the fridge when my feet hurt.
But here's where Goggins' mental techniques really come into play.
Okay.
Remember the cookie jar we talked about?
Yeah, yeah.
He used that constantly
Badwater.
during Badwater. He was revisiting memories of past suffering to push through the pain.
Wow.
He also used visualization techniques,
Okay.
picturing himself crossing the finish line to stay motivated.
So what was the outcome? Did he actually finish?
He did. Goggins completed the 135-mile race in 30 hours and 15 minutes, placing 5th overall.
Wow.
It was really just a testament to his incredible willpower and those mental strategies that he developed.
Right. I mean, that's an amazing accomplishment.
It is.
But it's hard for me to even fathom that level of endurance. I mean, what can the average person, someone who's not trying to be a Navy SEAL
Right.
or run these ultra marathons, I mean, what can they take away from Goggins' experiences?
Well, Goggins' story, while it's extreme, it offers some really valuable insights for all of us,
Okay.
He's basically saying that we all have this untapped potential. He calls it the untapped 60%.
Okay.
It's this hidden reserve that we rarely access because, we give up too easily or we let fear hold us back.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So how do we tap into that? Do we all need to start running 100-mile races?
Well, not necessarily. Goggins, he emphasizes the importance of self-awareness,
Okay.
identifying our weaknesses and then using those weaknesses as fuel for growth.
So it's more about mindset than anything else.
It really is about mindset.
Right.
And Goggins is a big advocate for setting really clearly defined goals
Right.
and pursuing those goals with relentless discipline.
Uh-huh.
He talks about using something he calls the accountability mirror.
The accountability mirror, what is that?
So it's where you write down your goals, your insecurities, your dreams on these Post-it notes, and you stick them to your mirror. So it's like this constant visual reminder of what you're striving for.
I like that idea. I like that a lot. Yeah, it's a way to hold yourself accountable and to really face those goals every day.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
He also talks about compartmentalization,
Okay.
which is basically breaking down these large, overwhelming tasks
Right.
into smaller, more manageable pieces.
Right.
So it's a way to kind of prevent yourself from feeling overwhelmed and stay focused.
It's like that saying, how do you eat an elephant?
Right. Exactly.
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
Yeah.
And these principles, they apply to any area of life, not just extreme physical challenges.
Right.
So whether it's your career, your relationships, your personal development,
Right.
it's about cultivating that mental toughness
Right.
and resilience
Yeah.
to overcome obstacles
Yeah.
and achieve your goals.
So it's clear that Goggins, places a huge emphasis on pushing these physical and mental limits. But is there a point where that kind of extreme approach can actually be detrimental? Is this something that everyone can or should do?
That's a great question, and it's important to remember that Goggins, he is an exceptional individual.
Yeah.
Not everyone is built to, withstand that level of punishment, and pushing yourself to those extremes can be risky.
Right.
So it's really crucial to listen to your body.
Yeah.
and prioritize safety.
So it's more about finding your own personal untapped 60% than trying to replicate Goggins' exact method.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about finding what works for you,
Right.
understanding your own limits,
Right.
and then pushing yourself in a way that's challenging but also sustainable.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's funny. We've talked so much about all the amazing things Goggins has done, all the physical and mental endurance feats, but the thing that really sticks with me is that idea of starting at zero.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems kind of counterintuitive, especially after everything he's already accomplished.
Right.
Why not just bask in the glory of those victories?
Well, it's a really fascinating part of his philosophy. He really believes that no matter what you've achieved, there's always room for growth.
Yeah.
There's always room to push further.
Right.
And he sees complacency as the enemy.
Right.
And so starting at zero is his way of kind of fighting against that.
So even after becoming a SEAL, breaking world records, running all these crazy ultramarathons, he never really let himself feel like he'd made it, huh?
Exactly. He argues that the moment we become satisfied, we stop growing. And he's constantly seeking out new challenges, putting himself in situations where he has to learn, adapt, basically become a beginner all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier about him taking up freediving after already being an accomplished scuba diver.
Right.
Is that an example of this whole starting at zero concept?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He could have easily stayed in his comfort zone with scuba diving,
Right.
but that's not the Goggins way. He chose to plunge into those depths without the equipment,
Yeah.
relying solely on his breath-holding abilities and his mental fortitude.
It's like he was intentionally seeking out discomfort.
Yeah.
Like almost like he was addicted to the challenge.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, but it's not about masochism for Goggins.
Right.
It's not about ego. It's about this really deep-seated belief that pushing beyond our limits is the key to unlocking our true potential.
But I mean, is that something everyone can or should do? I mean, it's incredibly inspiring to hear about, but pushing yourself to those extremes, I mean, it can be dangerous.
Yeah, and you're right to raise that point. Goggins is an exceptional individual.
Yeah.
And his methods they're not for everyone. He even acknowledges that in his book. It's really crucial to listen to your body,
Right.
to know your own limits,
Yeah.
and to prioritize safety.
So maybe it's less about replicating Goggins' exact methods and more about, finding our own version of starting at zero.
Exactly. It's about identifying those areas in our own lives where we've become complacent, where we've stopped challenging ourselves and finding ways to push beyond those boundaries, even if it's in small ways.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Goggins' story is it's like this jolt of energy. It's a reminder that we all have this incredible capacity for growth and resilience.
Yeah, his message is so powerful because it's not just about these physical feats.
Right.
It's about applying that same mental toughness to every aspect of our lives. Whether it's our careers, relationships, our personal development. He's encouraging us to confront our fears,
Yeah.
to embrace discomfort, and to strive for excellence.
Well, this has been a really eye-opening deep dive into Can't Hurt Me, and I think I can speak for both of us when I say that Goggins' story has definitely left us feeling pretty inspired.
Absolutely.
So to our listeners, we'll leave you with this. What's your untapped potential? What are you holding back from? Where can you embrace this start at zero mentality in your own life? And remember, Can't Hurt Me, it's not just a book title, it's a mindset.
Absolutely.
It's a declaration of our power to overcome adversity, to push beyond our limits, to achieve what seems impossible.
Yeah, as Goggins would say, get after it.
That's it for our deep dive into David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me. Until next time, keep pushing those limits and remember, you are capable of far more than you think.